Hey everybody, Alex here, and welcome to another video. Game of the month of the year for 2025. And it is tough a goings because you can see here, I did not even want to shave for this because this is going to be a long video, I think. If you have anything else better to do, cleaning the house, doing your cardio, I don't care. Do it. Put this on in the background and just listen to me ramble ad nauseum about the 12 best games that I played in 2025. And maybe at the end of this turkey, we'll actually decide which one I think was probably the best experience I had. Now, 2025 has been a very strange year for gaming. The industry, as I hit the mic, the industry is a mess currently. There's all this talk about AI tomfoolery, and as it is, one of a game that actually is on this list that won some indie game award actually was disqualified because they revealed they actually did use generative AI in the initial planning phases, and that apparently voided out the award. Which I played that game, and that game is on this list. And if you've been keeping up with stuff, you probably already know which one it is. And I get it. I'm not like for AI or Skynet, as I call it. But in an instance like that, you can't take away from the fact that they still did a remarkable job, even if they used it as a blueprint, right? So I've heard this argument come up a few times, and I'll get off this whole high horse. I promise you guys have probably already fallen asleep. Um, it's only going to come up more and more often, and eventually it's going to become commonplace, right? Kind of like how everybody, at least in my line of work, uses Excel, even if we don't talk about it, you know? And you may be saying, yeah, but Excel, you still have to punch in things. Dude, once you punch in algorithms, it just does everything for you. I'm just typing in numbers half the time. And that's where I say I'm not for or against. I mean, it's a tool. I don't think it should take away from creativity. But in terms of doing menial, nonsensical bullshit that takes up 12 hours, okay, fine. But it should also not take somebody's job. And that is the fine line that you and I actually care about, right? We want to see creativity, we want to see individuality, and we want to see people succeed financially and personally. But when you look at the big corporate picture, which is where I say the industry is in a strange place and they're a publicly traded company, who do you care about more, the investors or do you care about the employees? Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. I don't like it, but I also acknowledge it. I studied this. Like, literally, that's what I went to school for. I went to school for economics and business. And I don't do either. But I apply it every day. And me looking at a bunch of this stuff, this has been going on for years. It's just this industry in general, I'm going to say, is a young industry. And I don't mean young as in the people running it. I mean just it is now at that point where those growing pains are really becoming apparent. And I also don't think it helped that the Rona kind of made everything belly up in terms of like not belly up, inflate in terms of staff numbers and counts because it was needed. And the way that investors think, oh my God, there's money to be always a flash in the pan. And that's literally, it kind of imploded in and on of itself. It's also affected the hardware stuff, which truthfully has affected how I look at games in terms of when I want to buy them, how I want to buy them. And the same thing with this wackadoo nonsense with importing, where I'm being more selective with where and what I import because even with the Japanese exchange rate, once I put in that import fee, it kind of just negates the whole thing. And I may as well wait for another company, namely LRG, to bring it out over here in the year 2029. And they've also been hit with a bunch of wackadoo stuff, including selling of data to Meta, of all people, right? So, yeah, there's that. I don't know. It's all weird. It's all strange. But the fact of the matter is, I still played a bunch of kick-ass fucking games this year. We saw new hardware come out. We saw old hardware get more expensive. And we also saw a bunch of experimentation with a bunch of things that honestly I never thought were possible. And unlike the last year, I'm not having runners up, or games that disappointed me or anything like that, because this is going to be long enough. I think me just looking at the games here on this list, which I have up here in front of me. But I do want to shout out one particular game I did play that is not on this list, and that is one of my annual games, and that is going to be Visions of Mana. And truthfully, I've played my fair share of Mana games, and I usually save them for once a year, usually around Christmas time, because they're feel-good games, right? Even if the plots are dark, even if the gameplay is silly, even if the characters are cartoony and all this other stuff, there's just something about that sort of bright, vibrant world in the winter, which for New York is typically pretty gray. Even if it doesn't snow, it helps. As somebody who suffers from seasonal depression, amongst other things, the holidays are particularly difficult for me, since I no longer have my uncle or my mom here, who are really the champions of holidays. And in the case of my dad, it's a very weird situation. And truthfully, I haven't physically seen him maybe the past 6 Christmases. We've spoken on the phone, but as of this recording, he and I have not spoken for several months, and that's not due to any animosity. You could put 2 and 2 together. But anyway, yeah, Mana is definitely pulling me out of it. And also, as of this recording, I haven't picked my Christmassy game, which, some of you know about what I'm waiting. I'm waiting for this particular game because I asked for it for Christmas. And I'm recording this before Christmas, because I do not foresee myself finishing Visions of Mana in time. But either way, it's not going to be in the running because there's just so much other stuff in here. So I took all these down. I'm pretty sure these are in order, or if not, they're in kind of sort of different order. Who the fuck cares? It's 12 games, 12 go in, 1 comes out, number 1. Starting off with Metaphor Re-Fantasio. Now, yeah, I was late to the party with this one. Got it as a Christmas gift as part of a Secret Santa from Bobby, Man Boy Cave. And it's funny because this is like the second year in a row I think he's had me a Secret Santa. And he first off, he just gives way too much stuff. But as he said in the card when he sent over the package, he was like, when I saw this on your Secret Santa list, I thought, how can I not? And how does he not have this? And truthfully, I was just waiting because, well, truthfully, I didn't expect my Secret Santa to get it for me. That's the first thing. But secondly, I've noticed, like, when it comes to these big-ass RPGs these days, I'm less and less inclined to jump on them day one and play them day one, because I'm usually playing something else already. So I find myself having to schedule time to play these things, and ultimately I rush through something else. And the way I tend to play games, I already play games pretty fast, as you guys know. And that one year I finished close to 60 games. I mean, that's great. I was kind of disgusted because I was like, holy shit, I am sitting on that couch way too fucking much. I gotta do more cardio. So there you go. But Metaphor, my God, I mean, there's nothing really else to say about this game. It's insane. It is literally everything that the Persona team had wanted to do, or P5 Studio, or P Studio, I think it is, had wanted to do between Catherine, Persona 5, Digital Devil Saga, like way back when. They basically took all of those ideas, combined them into one, put in a very kick-ass job system, I have to say. On paper, it really doesn't look like you can customize. But once you get your specs in, once you get your gear set, you can make some pretty broken fucking shit. Case in point, and I was so proud of myself on this one, there are dragons in this game. And if you anybody who knows me knows all dragons must die. That is my rule. So I was like, okay, cool. I got to go fight these dragons. And each of these dragons has a different like theme, right? There's a poison one, there's a fire one. I think another one's like a death one. So the two of the three, very easy for me. I basically did a dry run, a la Final Fantasy 11. Was like, okay, this is what I have to look forward to, and then I went in and killed it. The fire one was giving me such a hard time, and I was trying to figure out every which way to beat it. And then it clicked in my head. Now, if you do not want to be spoiled, once I wave my hand like this, if you do give rat's ass, that means I'm not talking about it anymore. Actually, no, that doesn't make sense because then you have to mute the damn thing. Regardless, it's a fire dragon. So I had some fire resistant gear. I had some fire reflective gear. I had stuff that made me immune to status ailments and DOT effects or dots, right? Basically put all that on the main character and I just hit him with a sword over and over again. He basically beat himself to death. I beat him with one character alive. I literally just let the other two die. And that was it. And it was one of the easiest fights, battle of attrition, sure, but one of the easiest fights I'd ever done. But here's the deal. You do all three of those dragons, you go to the final boss. Other than the epicness of it, it's pretty trivial. And it kind of took away from that excitement because it's very grand. Grand in the sense of, I'm going to compare it to the final boss fight from Persona 5 and Persona 3, where big stuff goes down. But in terms of the game itself, I mean, they incorporate a lot of different things in here. There is a lot of Carl Jung philosophy in here. If you don't know who that is and you don't care about philosophy, fast forward. But in general, I thought that was really interesting. And for me, who didn't minor in philosophy but had an interest in philosophy, I was sitting there. Even my wife was like, "This is Carl Jung? Like, this sounds so familiar." And I'm like, "Oh God, I gotta get the book off the damn shelf." I thought I was back in college. It was very, very frightening. But the music is also great. But the music is very weird. This is basically Shoji Meguro he did a lot of something, I don't know what, and made up the soundtrack from this game. It's very operatic, which is very different from his jazz fusion bluesy rock stuff. I still really enjoyed it, but it's one of those game soundtracks for me where I can only listen to it in the confines of the game. Outside, it's weird. But the Persona 3 and Persona 4 music I can listen to all the time. Persona 5 is the same, and I'm only using those because Shoji wrote those soundtracks. But the thing is with Persona 5, every time I hear that da-da-da-da-da-da, like I immediately just think of the game itself. But like Iwatai Station, I can just listen to it. Or Heartbreak, I can just listen to it. But there's a lot of the Persona guts. The main character looks just like the P3 protagonist. I'm sorry. I'm just calling it how it is. But other than that, the party design, the party backstories, the social events, I'm not going to call them social links, but the social events, very Persona in essence, but very different in terms of character design because they're all adults for the most part. We're not talking about teenagers. And they all come from different walks of life. Some of them are a little tropey, but not anime tropey in the traditional sense. More like this is medieval Europe tropey. Really cool. I really enjoyed this game. I can't wait for them to do another one. Or if they do another one, maybe just call it like the ReFantazio series or Metaphor ReFantazio 2 and just it's in a different world altogether, different context, but like the way they intermingled all this familiar stuff into something new was really cool. And the only other game that I can think did that just as well is Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Where basically they did like the SMT setup, but with a Fire Emblem skin. Really, really cool. Although very different because we're talking with idols and all the anime tropes. Next up, we have Fuga. Now, I can't remember the full name of this. It's like, it's whatever. Let me just get, it's Fuga, Fuga. It's one of them joints by CyberConnect 2. You know the Naruto people? and the Soloto Robo people. You know the one. First they went with the furry stuff, then they went with the anime stuff, then they went to Asura's Wrath, which is a phenomenal game. I don't care what anybody says. And then they went back to the furry stuff, and then they went back to Naruto to make the money to make more furry stuff. And Fuga is basically their love letter to their I forgot the name of the series, but basically Soloto Robo, Tail Concerto, same universe ish. And Fuga stars a bunch of kids on a tank, and basically they're caught in a conflict of dogs versus cats, literally. And it's very much like a riff off of like I'm gonna say, I hate to use this word, the classic wars in terms of like your civil World War I, World War II, like that sort of thing. And you basically, these kids are detached from their families, and they find this tank, which, as anime go, is apparently inhabited by an essence unbeknownst to them. And basically this tank they're trying to find their parents, obviously, so they're using this tank as a means to get there. But along the way, because they're in this giant massive freaking tank that apparently has a mind of its own, they end up in conflict with the opposing army, and they get into tank battles. And there is a special cannon in this tank called the soul cannon, and the only way for it's basically an I win button. But the catch therein is, in order to use it, you have to sacrifice one of the kids. And that is a very strange thing, to say the least. As I know some people do not like to hurt dogs and cats in games. My wife can't stand to hear it. Anytime I play like a Resident Evil, there's like one of those demented Dobermans. She leaves the room because she just can't. Basically, she says when it's over, call me. And that's it. And in film and TV shows and whatnot, usually they cannot even show a child getting the M word on screen because it is actually considered to be one of the most disturbing scenes in cinema. And this game, if you're on the ropes, man, you got to do it, and you got to pick a kid, and you have a finite number of kids, and they all have backstories, and you get attached to all of them depending on how you go about it. You basically have to raise them. Now, I will say, for the sake of the tutorial, they do some timey-wimey magic because they have to explain this mechanic, and then you get a taste of what this feels like after the fact. And then they timey-wimey it back, and then you can actually go through the scenario without having to do it if you want to. And I highly recommend trying to go through this game without using the cannon at all. I did. But this is kind of where it's a little bit of trial and error. There's a little bit of a roguelike element into this game where you basically pick different tracks for the tank to go down. And, some of them have like more cinematic events. They have health pickups. They have more battles. Maybe there's less enemies, fewer enemies. Maybe your kids get some chance to, bond. There are bonding events, so you get to know the kids. And ultimately, the kids, some of them already know each other. Some of them don't. And as these things go, there's a little bit of an American Tail riff in there too. If you know, you know. And going through the entire game, it's pretty formulaic, to say the least. Basically, you do one track, you've done them all. But it's not very long. Where the whole crux of the whole thing is, even though you do have these, roguelike battles, let's say, where you kind of pick a path, and even though there is sort of like a rock, paper, scissors gameplay style to it, I feel like there is a degree of the random number generator in there, but it's not like egregious. It's kind of just like, oh, yay, another thing for me to think about. But it's, how could I put it? The gameplay is really cool and it's really fun. But when you do it for 15 hours, it gets a little stale. And you're kind of hanging on for the story because you want to see what happened. And this is one of 3 games. And I told myself if I enjoy the first one enough, I'll do the other 2. And they announced physical release, so you can guess what happened. I picked up all 3. It's a really good fucking time. If you enjoy coming of age stories, and not coming of age in the traditional sense, more just like, I'll say like kids in impossible situations and coming up on top, this is the game for you. But I am warning you, it is layered with darkness between the furry aesthetic. You're going to look at it, you're going to go, what's this cutesy wootsy bullshit with a tank? And then after a couple hours, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is bad. Um, there's a degree, there's racism in there. There's loneliness. There's body dysmorphia. There's a lot of darkness going on in this game, let me tell you. And depending on how you play the game, at the end, you may actually have to experience loss in there too. And you see it firsthand in the kids before you as a player even feel it. From that one to... If you do play it in the tutorial, you'll know what I mean. That's all I'm going to say about it. But Fuga was an excellent time. Next up, we have Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, the best not Indiana Jones movie I have ever played. I discussed this on a Video Games Gaiden episode with Ree Louie, where we tried to figure out who did it better, Nathan Drake, Lara Croft, or Indy. And basically, it was originally just supposed to be us playing one game. And then all of a sudden, we both happened to play this Indiana Jones game, and we were both super duper high on it, and it's justified. Machine Games knocked out of the park. I will say, coming off of Wolfenstein and everything else, part of me was kind of afraid it was just going to be Indiana Jones with a machine gun, which there is a little bit of that. But Indy, basically, he gets his ass handed to him so easy, just like in the movies, man. 2 punches, he's out cold, and he punches like he punches like a Nancy boy. But yeah, that's very much what it is. Your perks are like fisticuffs, and it's like you can get one hit in the face, and it's like, oh yay, one hit in the face. BJ Blazkowicz could take 5 bullets to the brain and keep on going, but Indy ain't BJ Blazkowicz. Indiana Jones is a doctor and he's a scientist, so a majority of this first-person adventure is puzzle solving and not raiding tombs, but exploring tombs. There is a very long sequence in this game that really stuck out to me. I mentioned this a bunch of times. I went to Catholic school. I've always been interested in the history of what went into Catholicism, the beliefs, what was taken, what was, I'll say stolen, what was inferred, what was, molded into a way where it made sense in the grand scheme of things. Because remember, with ancient Rome, one day they just went, hey, guess what? Catholicism is recognized. And everybody was like, what the fuck? Like, well, what are we going to do? So to lighten that blow, they started to intermingle things in there, and they gradually faded it out. You see that a lot. I mean, I'll use the time of the year. Christmas is essentially based on a ton of different pagan beliefs, and it all got intermingled and rolled up into a nice bow. So when you have a game like this where they're exploring catacombs and you're seeing these things that you read about in history books, and Indy is dropping knowledge about why this is the way it is, it's very eye-opening. And what also helps is the fact that Machine Games chose to go with spectacle by observation as opposed to spectacle by Michael Bay. There is a little bit of that in there, and guess what? Out of, like, let's say you have a cap of 5 minutes before your brain starts to melt, they cut it off at 4 minutes and 45 seconds. So you're like, ooh, that was so good. Thank God it's over, because that was really intense. And there's a bunch of that, but not too much to the point where you're just like, oh my God, it's enough. It's such a tasteful experience. Even the stealth sequences, which truthfully I don't mind. I enjoy stealth gameplay. They're not forgiving, but they're not overly drawn out. It's like, Indy's like, oh, I have to get in there. But there's 20 different paths and ways you can take. You could go in there guns blazing, but you'll probably die, to be honest. You could try to take out a couple of guys and hide. You can try to fisticuff them. You can try to knock them unconscious and keep moving. It's enough flexibility that it is believable in the essence of Indiana Jones. And I honestly think that is the greatest strength of this game. And the story and the editing and the cinematics themselves, very much Indiana Jones. And the villain is just, it's a N-word because YouTube. But you could put it begins with an N, ends with an I, and has an as in the middle. But that's essentially what he is, and he's basically just into the whole occult thing because his commander, let's say, is really into that, and historically that is very accurate. That is very true. So, just so much reverence to the source material. I would have loved to see this as a movie. There is DLC. I haven't touched it. Honestly, after leaving this adventure, I really want to play the DLC, but I would be totally satisfied if there was no DLC. That's how enjoyable this game is. I don't think it's going to be for everybody. There are side quests. It's not like egregious like a Skyrim. It's basically there if you want to pad stuff out a bit, explore Egypt a little bit, explore Vatican City a little bit. It's nice. It's nice. Is it absolutely necessary? No. It's really more so historical flavor if you're into that sort of thing. Now, next up, we have Rogue Flight. Now, this game, man, I played a demo of this on Steam maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and I completely forgot about it. And then one day I'm perusing the YouTube as I do, and I saw a Hidden Gems video. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit jaded here, so hear me out. 9 times out of 10, I know almost every game that's going to show up in these Hidden Gems videos. And if I don't know the name of the game, I'm like, it's going to be a puzzle platformer. Or it's going to be this. Or it's going to be that. Because I know the YouTubers. I've been watching these dudes forever. Some of them have the same taste I do. So it's kind of hard for me to come up or find a hidden gem if I'm watching someone like Radical Reggie, who is pretty much into the same genre as I am. But motherfucker, he found one game I did not realize, but when I saw the gameplay, I was like, holy shit, I played this demo. I completely forgot about this. I did not know it got a physical release, and Europe only. So I was like, oh man, imported it. Or I was going to import it. But then by chance, some seller on Amazon US had it, and it was only $5 more than the PAL than importing it. So I figured, fuck it. So I just ordered it, prime shipping, no problem. It was actually the Amazon UK web store. I don't know. I guess they had some in the warehouse over here. Who knows? This was before all the wackadoo silliness. Wow. If you are into Afterburner, if you are into Star Fox, if you are into what they call peak anime or high point anime, basically 80s and 90s anime, Macross, Robotech, I'll even throw in a little bit of Gundam in there. Maybe a little bit of, I don't want to say Project A-ko, but basically space operas. Wow, you got to play this damn game. It's very cool. I almost got a fucking platinum in it. That's how much I enjoyed it. And I do not go for platinums. I am not Blink. I am not Ree Louie. I'm not my boy Handsome Rob. I am none of those people. I basically play till credits, and then I go yay, and then I pop out the disc. I played through this game 5 times. I got every ending, except doing the Rogue Flight version where you die and that's it, because the last boss is, whew. It is so much fun. I can't even begin to describe it. The opening intro song is so good. I think it's by Fat Bard. And it's basically like, how can I put it? It's like an 80s, 90s anime intro song where it has like a screeching guitar. It almost sounds like it's going to go insane, but then it doesn't, and just goes into something like, Just Communication from Gundam Wing. I was like, okay, all right, I'm about this. The voice actors are known voice actors. I know the voices. I don't recall the names. But in terms of gameplay, that first level, man, it's pure Afterburner. It's just constant, just rockets firing all over the place, big obnoxious bosses like in Star Fox, where basically they just put it in front of you and you have to keep changing around, flying around, shooting rockets and dodging and doing barrel rolls and all this other stuff and boosting and braking. Oh my god, the adrenaline, the amount of sound. Like, I had to play this with headphones on, not because it was so loud, just because I wanted to go deaf from all the sound going on. The sound design is so killer. Graphically, this is not going to write any checks, but it doesn't need to because it is a lock 60 frames per second, and just as soon as you finish this game, you're going to want to fire it up again. I am telling you that right from the get-go. It does the Star Fox thing with different paths, thus your different endings. And it gives you some choice in there too. Now, in terms of choice, it really just affects what ending you get. But my God, you got to play it. If you're looking for high-octane action, you can do no wrong than Rogue Flight. A part of the So Nice, they named it twice challenge. I finally got around to Psychonauts 2. Or as I call it, the not Tim Burton movie. Psychonauts 2 is 1,000% better than Psychonauts 1. Rasputin is the man. And I will say this right from the get-go. I know a lot of people never played the original Psychonauts. It kind of came out and nobody really cared. And then that became a hidden gem and all of a sudden everybody cared, but still nobody played it. If you're going to play Psychonauts 2, I highly recommend you at least play Psychonauts 1. Rhombus of Ruin, the VR game, you don't need to play it. Psychonauts 2 actually gives like a little synopsis right at the beginning of what happened in the previous two games. But I feel like you will reflect or come to appreciate the level design, the characters, and the performance improvements since Psychonauts 1 and why this game took forever and 10 years to come out. It is so well done, and it has such a beautiful message about mental health. And that's one thing Psychonauts 1, or Psychonauts in general, kind of teaches you, because Psychonauts are essentially just, astronauts that go into people's brains and try to fix them. And usually it's tied to some sort of emotional trauma. And that's the whole crux of this game. Each level is tied around some emotional trauma. And you actually learn about these characters and why they are the way they are. And if you go through the first game, you learn about with the supporting cast as well. And coming into this one, you actually see how they interact with each other now. And how somebody you may have quote-unquote fixed in the first game had an effect on somebody else. And the overall story is just so beautiful. And I don't mean that to be hyperbolic. Like at the end, I was just like, everything comes full circle. And it's ultimately about friends, family, and love. And self-healing. And coming to the realization that you can always be better than you think you are destined to be. Has a very beautiful message tied around some excellent 3D platforming. And it doesn't feel, despite this game taking forever to come out, and despite me playing it way late, does not feel dated at all, and it runs a smooth 60 on PS4. It's like $4 on Steam at this point. I don't think the game sold well at all when it was an Xbox exclusive, but I don't care how you do it. Play it. It is such a great game. If you like 3D platformers, you owe it to yourself. Now, if you're like, I don't want to play the first one because it's old. Fair. Just realize, like, some characters you're going to see, and you're going to be like, why is Rasputin so excited? But other than that, you can still really enjoy this game. Now, because I like visual novels, and I can't not have one of these lists without at least one on here, I finally played 1,000 Times Resist. This is an indie darling that came out, I think, a year ago. And I've been putting it off. And finally, I saw it on, of all places, PlayAsia for like $3 digitally. And I was thinking, oh boy, I'm going to get some spyware, aren't I? But I figured, let me try it. So I purchased it, and sure enough, legitimate key. I was surprised. 1,000 Times Resist is probably one of the most introspective and strangest games I played this year, and I was hopelessly addicted to playing it. I would sit down, now mind you, it is on the Switch, and it is a blurry fucking mess from the gameplay I watched. So I played it on my laptop, obviously. So I was sitting at the dinette like this the whole time. And truthfully, when it comes to visual novels, I like to have them physically in my hand because if I'm sitting on a laptop, I tend to doze. And I think part of my playtime is me doing one of these things. Not because it's boring, just positional, I like movement. I mean, I'm Italian. I speak with my hands a lot. So what's this game about? To be honest with you, if I tell you, it's going to fucking ruin it. But long story short, the world has ended, and there is an immortal being known as the Mother who has nothing but daughters, and each of these daughters has a different role in society. And your role is to observe the memories of mother, and that's your job. And when somebody dies, they just get replaced. And there is an alien above that took over the world, and basically going outside is absolutely poison, so they all live underground in this on paper utopian society. Now, as these things go and as these sort of plots go, it's not all pixies and lollipops. However, in exploring Mother's memories, you realize that even the old world wasn't always pixies and lollipops, and why this world is designed the way it is. And truthfully, I am not of Asian descent, but I think the writer is, and there is a lot of symbolism, not symbolism, there is a lot of, I guess you could say, expectation show between parents to their children. And, I have a few friends who are, Asia Pacific, Filipino, Chinese, Korean, Taiwanese, stuff like that. And usually, sorry, I shouldn't say stuff like that, folks like that. And usually they say, yeah, it's like you're born, it's like, great, they'll be a doctor. And it's like, I don't want to, you disappointed me. And there is an inherent guilt about disappointing and showing rebellion. And in the case of Mother, she is trying to rebel. But, one of the parents is like, no, we gave up all this stuff and you just have no gratitude towards us. And from what I understand from some folks that I speak to, that's very much a thing. And, coming from my background, I can, not one for one, but I can kind of see it. Because from my perspective here, from my father's side, which is, Egyptian Middle Eastern, usually there is kind of like a family loyalty, right? So you could technically be 150% in the wrong. And as the kid, you have to take the parent's side, even if you know it is 150% incorrect. And if you don't, they're disappointed in you. They wasted money on you. They wasted their life on you. And sorry, this isn't like a therapy session. I'm just saying, I'm trying to paint it out the way I understand it because this is what went on with me. I went to college and, I originally wanted to become a voice actor. A bunch of you guys don't know that. And did I actually pursue it? No. But when I mentioned it to my parents, they kind of looked at me like, really? That's what you want to do? Why? That doesn't make any sense. Once upon a time, I thought I wanted to be a writer, and my parents were like, why? Don't you want to make money? It's very much like that, right? That's how I know it, purely from the academic standpoint. But in this essence here, it's, privilege. It's a little bit of diet in there. It's not respecting, what's the word I want to use? Tradition. And in the case of this utopia, there is a lot of tradition in there that is being imposed by Mother on her children, whether she realizes it or not, because that's kind of how she was treated growing up. And as the watcher, you kind of witness all this through vignettes, as well as other things to uncover the overall mystery of why things are the way they are. It is a very, very powerful story. It is a very dark story. It is beautifully voice acted when there is voice acting. It's also, there's really not so much of a path system. There's a little bit of puzzle solving. You kind of just run from place to place, and there's a little bit of platforming. But ultimately, it's a visual novel through and through. But I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. But I am going to warn you, you have to be in a specific mindset. If you go into this ultimately super duper depressed, it's not going to help you any. Next up, my first Switch 2 game, Kunitsugami. Oh, man. Wow. I hate tower defense. Pure and simple. Can't even explain it otherwise. And I saw a trailer for this game, and I thought this looks amazing. And then somebody said tower defense. I went, this looks like shit. But by chance, as somebody who tries to be cultured and take the world as it comes and enjoy things, even though he doesn't really enjoy them, like Coke Zero in Japan. Kunitsugami is not a tower defense game. It is a real-time strategy game on rails. And by that, I mean you essentially go from point A to point B to get to a torii gate so that you can purify. And along the way, you're going to be attacked by yokai. And you basically have to do real-time strategy things with villagers you save and recruit along the way so that you can continue to progress and your goddess doesn't get overrun and die so she can't purify the gate. Really, really interesting stuff. The storyline is very dark. It's one of those stories where I like to say it's like Attack on Titan or like The Walking Dead. You already know, even if you have a happy ending, is it really going to be happy? Really? Like, is it? And this game definitely kind of sort of has that. But it's the journey that is so interesting because there is no dialogue. You literally just watch cutscenes happen and you have to infer things because you're technically a guardian that has been summoned for the purpose of helping your shrine maiden person purify all these gates. And every time she purifies a gate, it kind of sort of almost kills her. Think of it kind of like Pandora's Tower, where if you don't give that individual monster guts, they start to get more and more deformed. Same thing. And there is a mechanic within the game where sometimes she gets completely overrun and you basically have to beat it back into her. Not physically beat her, but you know what I mean? Like, it's essentially like a mini boss fight. Which brings me to the boss fights in this game. Because, yeah, we have to have boss fights. Wow. They are a spectacle, let me tell you. Don't let the gameplay fool you. Because basically you're given a finite number of villagers right at the beginning, and you have to design your party the way you see fit. Whether that be with sumo wrestlers who are your tanks, whether that be with musketeers, spearmen, samurai, monks, stuff like that. And as you fight the boss, it's kind of like, because you have to command them actively. You have to move them around basically to, like, you know, the big bad will start to do an attack and you have to do like one of those like control all minions and then pull them to the side so they all don't die. Kind of like in Pikmin. It is very much like Pikmin where, you know, you kind of have to zerg them around back and forth. But sometimes certain characters and townspeople rather just don't work. So like with one particular boss, the only way I was able to beat him was to get a whole squad of sumos and a bunch of healers and then put some cannon guys in the back while I just beat him in the ass with a katana. You know, that was the only... And then basically, I would rely on him to get aggro on me, and if it wasn't me, it was the sumos. And if it was the sumos, I would run away and take care of my shit. And then if it wasn't the sumos, you know, I would... if it was the sumos, I'd just continue to wail on them. But it is such an interesting game, and I have to say... The Switch 2, it doesn't do it at 60. This is actually a very demanding game, but it's like a locked 45. And it looks great. And it runs perfectly, in my opinion. It is a game key card in Japan. I know that's going to be a turnoff for a lot of people. It's also digital only here in the States. I know that's going to be a huge turnoff for a lot of people. If you have a Steam Deck... It can run on there, but not too well because it's actually much more demanding on a PC. But if you have the means to play it on a decently powered desktop or laptop, please do. If you're remotely interested in Japanese culture and interpretation and silent storytelling, this is great. If you like RTS, this is great. If you like a little bit of city building, but not like in the essence where... You know, to quote Jordan from Physical Paradise, oh, you built a house, you get 5% attack up. There's none of that shit. It's basically just to make you feel good. And then you use that to get like different things so you can purchase upgrades the way you want them to be. You got to check it out. It does a lot of interesting things, and it's usually bundled with Okami digitally on different platforms. So if you're looking to get Okami anyway, you may as well just throw this one in. It is probably one of the most unique games I've ever played, let alone one of the more unique games I played this year. Now this one is the Motherload. Sip a Diet Coke for finally putting a fork in it. I beat Mother 3, otherwise known as Earthbound 3, otherwise known as the game that Nintendo refuses to localize over here, even though it was localized already by a professional localizer, and they have even written to Nintendo saying, use my script, don't pay me. Having finally finished Mother 3, I completely understand why Nintendo in their right mind would be stupid to bring that game out over here. And it is not necessarily for what you think. And this game, truthfully, is one of the handful of times where I can truthfully, unabashedly say, the hype is real. I have never been so engrossed in a retro RPG since the days of retro RPGs being modern gaming. This is an adventure for the ages, and I will say right here and there, it is a more insane adventure than Earthbound. It has so many things going on in there. Adult themes, death, mental illness, body dysmorphia. Again, this seems to be a theme this year. Depression, obsession, OCD, autism is brought up as well, which is it doesn't make sense, but when you get to the end of the game, it kind of starts to make sense of it. And truthfully, all that stuff disguised around what is a very kiddie-looking game is enough to get it like an M rating. But there is another aspect of this game which is hindering it from coming out over here. And I kept myself 100% in the dark because I was ruined by trying to save Terranigma for myself, and I was afraid this was going to be the same. But Paige Femtrooper, she gave it her thumbs up, and she said, no, listen, you got to play it. I did a little poll. It was a loaded poll. I knew everybody was going to pick Mother 3 anyway. But, oh my God. Guys, thank you. Thank you for making me get off my ass to play this game. Within the first 2 hours, I was like, holy shit, what is happening? Like, this is dark. This is fucking dark. And then it gets lighthearted. And then it gets dark again. And then it gets weird. And then it gets zany. And then after I finish the game, and the final dungeon and the final boss fight is probably some of the most depressing stuff. And that's all I'm going to say. It is depressing. But it is also the best way to end this game. I was like, I can finally watch that backlog of videos about why this game cannot come out in the United States. And I did watch all those videos, and it truthfully, as much as I said it had to do with like all this subject matter, which is pretty dark at times, which actually, no, it is very dark at times. It's actually not what I thought it was. It's actually tied into the music of the game. And I'm only bringing this up briefly because that ties into the battle system. Depending on who you're fighting and what you're fighting, there are different battle-themed tracks. And there is a mechanic in there of a rhythm game where when you physically attack, if you tap the attack button according to the beat of the music, you get subsequent attacks, up to I think it's like 5 or 6, which can make bosses extremely easy, much like countering in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. You master the counter system, you can make short work of anything 10 levels ahead of you. And in the case of Mother 3, you grind a little bit, you do a little bit of that. Bosses are very easy. You figure out what their weakness is, you have somebody in the back healing while everybody else just whacks them. Bosses are incredibly easy. The music, and this is the last I'm mentioning of it. Let's just say it goes beyond cover music. And if you are a musician, if you're into music, if you're into blues, if you're into classic rock, there's a lot of obvious stuff in there, and I'm not talking about the Blues Brothers references in Earthbound. It's a lot more obvious. And truthfully, I had to play this when I did play this game. I played this game on the analog. I played it on both the TV and handheld. If I was fighting a boss, I had to put it handheld with headphones on because I needed those subsequent attacks sometimes, man. It does keep that whole roulette, not roulette, that I want to say rotisserie, but that's not the right word. That rotary thing for HP. So you'd be like, oh God, I'm gonna die, quick, eat this prune. Like whatever. Just to keep somebody alive. And my wife was watching me play, and she was even just like, wow. She's like, you were supposed to die like 12 times. How are you still alive? I'm like, because I just keep button mashing my way to the heal button. Because a lot of bosses have AoE effects, which is not the end of the world, but it's annoying. But your party can get OP very, very quickly. And the party lineup this time is also, I think, a little bit more interesting than the Earthbound group. In terms of you have like adults, you have princesses, you have your dog, and he's a badass. Good dog. He's a good boy. He's a good dog. He soloed a whole fucking boss for me, he did. Yes, sir, Bob. But it's such a crazy adventure. And there is just so much. There is so much in there I could bring up and talk about. But if I do, it's going to ruin the mystique of this game. And I think me talking about the whole music thing is borderline pushing it. But I will say this. Again, of all the games I have played this year, I have never been so emotionally impacted by an ending from a retro video game other than To the Moon. And To the Moon made both myself and my wife cry. This is not To the Moon. It is not of that ilk. This is something that is tied into those themes I already talked about. Love, loss, emotional distress, mental instability, family. A lot of different things, good and bad, all wrapped into one. And there's a lot of meta shit going on at the same time. This is probably one of the few times I could say the hype is real, and Mother 3 is definitely worth a play. Next up, we have Shinobi, The Art of Vengeance. Holy hell. Lizard Cube, you did it again. This was the year of the Ninja, man. I played Ninja Gaiden. I played Shinobi. I almost played the other Ninja Gaiden, Ragebound, but I was like, no, too many ninjas, too many dudes. Shinobi Art of Vengeance, man, let me tell you. If you like the classic Shinobi, you'll like this, but you're also going to be like, I don't know. It's a little too actiony. It's a little too 2D run and gunny. It's a little Metroid style Castlevania-y. It's not Shinobi. It kind of is and it kind of isn't because it's borrowing from a lot of different games. There is a little bit of the Metroid style exploration, but they're ultimately stages. So you can go back to that stage once you get different abilities and get different things for different items, different power-ups, different abilities, different challenges, and all that stuff. It is not necessary. It is not 150% required. You can go through the stage by stage by stage if you want to. And here's the fun part. After a couple stages, you get what is disguised as a bonus stage where like you're surfing and stuff. Those are just as fun, man. That's a Scream Sega Genesis in the 90s. I played the game in Japanese because I imported it because it was less expensive and I couldn't wait. And that also has English in it, so don't worry about it. But I didn't listen to the English voice cast, but the Japanese voice cast, oh man, it's so good. And this is also a direct sequel to the classic Shinobi games because it just basically just spits it right out in the beginning. But don't let that fool you. Despite this being a modern game with modern niceties to it, it is very challenging in certain aspects. The last boss, I'll be honest, most difficult boss in the world? No. Most epic boss in the world? Yeah. Was there like one stage where I started to shit bricks? Absolutely. But by the power of ninja magic, I was able to survive because there is ninja magic. And it is all classically animated and drawn in whatever format they're using. I think it's Unreal Engine. Oh my God. It's so... Listen, Lizard Cube, they do so good with this stuff. They do so good with this stuff. If you're a fan of any of this crap, I am sorry. You got to play this. It is so good. The platforming is so fluid. The combat, I was really worried about the combat because I've sworn off of Soulsy things. The combat of this really wants you to go into combos, and they want you to make it flashy. Come flashy. Um, it's stylish, but it's also very forgiving because you can get abilities where it's like, your hit window is like an extra second. If you counter, you get an attack boost. If you get hit, maybe your next hit, you don't take as much damage. And then they throw the platforming at you, and it all goes out the window. But the game is very accessible. I highly recommend. This was one of those games like I couldn't put it down. I was thrilled from cover to cover. And upon finishing it, I even remember one of the Discord servers I went to. I said, "Drop what you're doing and play this now. Like, this is great." Oh, I would love to play it again. Clear Obscure Expedition 33. Okay. Let me say this, as I've heard this thrown around a bit. JRPG at this point is a genre. It is a style of game. A JRPG can come from England, it can come from France, it could come from the United States, it could come from South America, it could come from Japan. It doesn't matter. I know some folks do not like that term thrown around. This is a JRPG, okay? I'm just saying it. In terms of design. If you look at a Western RPG, I think of The Witcher. I think of your Skyrim. I think of Fallout. I think of, I hate to say it, Greedfall. This is a JRPG. Very reminiscent of your Final Fantasy X because it is very much a straight line. Or Final Fantasy 13, which apparently was a problem for being in a straight line, but I digress. The cast of this game, the voice acting, the music, everything about this game, recent controversy aside, is so original. I was floored, not only by watching the Game Awards at how many awards this thing walked away with, but how everything came together. Cinderella's story, right? Bunch of guys and gals tired of working for the man, want to make a game their own way, start their own studio. Show up to the Game Awards all wearing matching uniforms, walk out with a declaration worth of gold, And they looked so excited and happy at what they had created. And everybody who played this game was so happy and excited at what they had created. I was in awe at the fact that they got this stellar voice cast who, like, all of them got nominated. But the one that really boggled my mind was Charlie Cox. He literally went in, read his lines, had no idea what he was doing. He went in, he got paid, and he left. And his character is by far one of the best characters in the whole damn game. I can't spoil it. There are so many twists and turns in this game. And this is another one of those games, right? If you're unfamiliar with the concept here, essentially the Paintress is basically Expedition 33. If that number changes to 32, everybody who's 33 years old disappears. And it's been working its way down since 100. So at 100, not so bad. Eventually it gets worse. And obviously at one point, we have 13-year-olds raising babies. And then eventually we won't even have that. So each expedition goes out. All of them have gotten to different points where they can almost get to the Paintress, but something happens. But it is one of those things, again, an Attack on Titan scenario. There is really no good that can come out of any of this. And sure enough, as these things go, they nearly get wiped out within the first 5 minutes of landing on this island. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this was the tutorial to, okay, no, we're using the same people. Okay. Oh man, they fucked. And that's where you start to get attached to these characters, because each of the characters in your party ultimately plays very different. And each one is a riff on a classic JRPG battle mechanic, which is really, really fun. It goes beyond your glass cannon. You got your countery person. You got your person that builds charges. You got your person that can, buff, all this stuff. but they all have different mechanics and they all play off of each other differently. So when you make a squad, it's not like, oh, this is my pain making squad. This is more like, this is my, I'm going to be a pain in the ass to the boss squad. So case in point, Mael, for me, was my damage dealer. And her stuff was all about, hey, I do more damage if a thing is on fire. And then somebody else was just setting things on fire the whole time. And the fire effect at one point was doing like 5,000 damage a turn. And then Mael would hit for 9,999. And then it would just rinse and repeat. And then you get a counter, which everybody knows about. I'll be honest with you. I'm not the best at the counter system, but when you get one, just watch that HP go down. Much better at dodging. But that's the thing. Even if you can't dodge, even if you can't counter that well, there's different abilities you can get where, hey, guess what? If you can't counter and you get hit, you still get more shit so that you can do more pain making. It is so flexible in terms of battle systems. And there's a bunch of optional like world bosses you can go into. You could be 10 levels below them, but if you have that counter system down, bro, I beat one mini boss that was like 5 levels above me. And I didn't even break a sweat. And I was like, oh man, I'm an absolute badass, walking around, like I'm a man. And I went and I got my ass wiped on the next boss, who was supposed to be of my level. But that's the thing with this. It doesn't feel unfair because when you die, it doesn't give you a game over. It just says, you want to try it again? Or do you want to go back to your last save point? And usually it auto-saves right before you get to the boss so you can see them. And then you can be like, oh no, I'm going back that way. The quality of life in this game, like even they knew. Like, okay, cool. What are the things people like about RPGs? What are the things that piss them off? Take all that piss off shit away and let's give them more of what they want. Infinite customization. Different characters, different archetypes, different class, quote-unquote, abilities, different personalities, different walks of life, intrigue, comic relief, flying, a world map, all of these things. And, it's basically just like, let's take a bunch of ideas, we'll throw them in a pot, and we'll hope for the best. Listen, despite popular belief, you can't just throw butter at everything and make it taste good. Somehow these motherfuckers figured it out. This game is absolutely outstanding, probably one of the more unique things I played this year. And guess what? It's using stuff we all know about, but it's giving it to us in just the right dose. Such an excellent experience through and through. 9 out of 10. Doom the Dark Ages. Okay. Now, if you know me, you know I love 3 things in life. I love Diet Coke, I love heavy metal, and I love Captain America. If I have a lot of Diet Coke, if I have heavy metal, if I have the Doom guy chucking shields like Captain America, holy hell, how can this not be my game of the year? It's not my game of the year. But how can this not be my game of the year? Doom the Dark Ages. I'm just going to say right off the muscle, not a better game than Doom Eternal. But as a prequel, as doing something a little different, as saying, here's the Doom guy unhinged again? Bro, my God. The first level, I was like sweating just profusely. And then all of a sudden he's in a mech and he's just punching the shit out of dudes. And I'm like, how can this not get more epic? And you just hear somebody go, release the wyverns. And then all of a sudden this fucking dragon comes out of nowhere and the Doom guy just jumps on it and he's riding it like he's a fucking dino rider. And now it's Panzer Dragoon. And I'm like, what in the world? Holy shit. And then all of a sudden he has a dog and my God, and the dog is more brutal than he is. Oh my God, this game was so good. I can't even get into it how good this game is. They do try to give a little bit of plot. I don't think it necessarily needed it. But contextually, it made tons of sense about why the Doom guy is so pissed off and he can't die. And why he refuses to die. Makes a lot of sense. And why everybody's afraid of him. Makes a lot of sense. And why in this Doom Eternal he's flying around in a fucking death machine? Oh my god! The adrenaline in this game. I can't even explain it. The levels are very samey though. Like I'll be 100 with you on that one. There's a little bit of open world nonsense with challenges, but it's very arcadey, very video gamey. But the thing with it is the stages are very much like go from area to area, and all of a sudden, oh, it's a big circular room with stuff. I wonder what's gonna happen. That was the same thing with 2016. That was the same thing with Eternal. It's a lot more blatant in this game, and I'll be honest, some levels, few too many, if you ask me. Sometimes a few too many fodder enemies, but then you hit like 12 of them in a row with a shield, and you're like, oh man, yeah, never mind, I'm good. There is one thing that is missing from this game, and that is Mick Gordon. He's the dude who did the soundtrack for Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, amongst Prey, Killer Instinct, and other things as well. He had a bit of a falling out with Bethesda, and he was not participating in this game. And it shows, or you hear it. The band that they did pick, they have some killer tracks in here. But I'll be honest, and I said this to a buddy of mine who speaks guitar. He's like, man, they need 9 strings. And he's like, yeah, it's all 7s. 7s and 8s. They need 9. They need the boom, boom, boom going constantly. There is one killer track towards the end, though, with like one of the bosses. And I will put it to you this way. I cranked that shit so hard, I heard banging on the wall. I was like, and a bunch of you guys I sent the song to, I'm like, just listen to it. It's not the most creative thing in the world, but you tell me you can't at least bang your fucking head to it. And that's where Doom is like one of my comfort things. It is, at least the modern iterations, it is such an adrenaline rush. Constantly. Exhaustingly. Like when I finish playing one level, like I can only do a level a day. It's like I always yell at people about not doing cardio. Do not do cardio and play this game like on a Steam Deck or something. You will die. You will keel over dead. Okay? It's just not a good idea. Not a good look at all. You have to play this in bursts. You have to take a break. You have to have a Diet Coke. You have to listen to some heavy metal. And then you come back a few hours later after you're rested. Maybe eat some protein. And the final game for Game of the Month of the Year for 2015 is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Now, first off, we've been talking about this game since at least 2020. We all know what happened back then. But it still took forever for this game to come out. And it had a very, we'll say, estranged relationship with the development team. Only to go back to the guys who originally had the Prime games in the first place. And they essentially were just tasked with, and they were essentially tasked with picking up the pieces. And I'm not going to say it shows. I'm going to say they took what was good about Metroid Prime and they didn't really do much else with it. I think it really came down to the fact that they were under the gun. This game had already taken way too long to come out. I guarantee you Nintendo threw, by Nintendo standards, they threw a ton of money at development, which is probably not a lot, but to them it's probably a lot. And they were like, make this game come out now. And that's what they did. And this game, I enjoyed it immensely. But it did get a little bit of a mixed reception. The first call to arms was the fact that we had people that were talking that weren't Samus. And they were like, oh no, it's like Other M all over again. Oh, Jesus Christ, everybody pour oil and tar on it and set it on fire. But listen, Other M is not a bad Metroid game. The story, on the other hand, tries to paint Samus as a weak person who is subservient, which is not her. And has never been her. Considering the first game, you literally didn't even realize Samus was the badass she is until the very end. You're like, oh shit, Samus is a woman. So why the hell is she taking orders from this douchebag? You know, and then the whole thing with the AI in the other games too, where he's kind of just barking orders at her. But, you know, she's a hunter. You know, you give her an objective and she's like, okay, I'll get it done by any means necessary. But in this game, she's kind of revered. People see Samus, it's like when the Doom guy enters a room. You know, like in Doom Eternal, you get on the space station, everybody's like, oh no, it's him. Look, it's him, Leopold. In the case of Samus, it's like, Samus Aran, I'm a huge fan. It's like, okay, that's a thing. It's like seeing Sly Stallone dressed as Rambo. Not today, but back then, you know, you're like, oh my God, it's Rambo. It's Rocky. It's Samus Aran. Holy hell. How are you? Can I help? And Samus doesn't talk. Samus just nods. Or there's perceived communication, which some people say is a little jarring. I'm just going to say it's Chozo like telepathy, just to make myself feel better. But they will respond, go, oh yeah, no, you're right, Samus. Who knows? I think it works. Because ultimately, here's the thing, and this is where everybody got upset. Metroid typically is a very isolated experience. Samus is typically just dropped on world and is told, hey, the mother brain's doing bad shit. Hey, there's Metroids. Hey, this, that, the third. Go wipe it out. Go blow it up. Go do something. And in this game, she's kind of whisked away to another planet with a ragtag band of misfits. But here's the deal. That ragtag band of misfits is actually tied into the story. And they really aren't that obtrusive or intrusive. What this looks like to me, truthfully, is this was in development. I don't know if this is fact, but this is kind of what I think. It was in development around the same time as Breath of the Wild. Because Breath of the Wild has a lot of stuff in there that I could see the roots of in Metroid 4 Beyond. In Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, rather. Now, because Retro had to pick up pieces, maybe they didn't have time to do all that stuff to the extent that Nintendo had time to do with Breath of the Wild, let alone Tears of the Kingdom. Because what a lot of people didn't like is this whole open world, drive around on the motorcycle, this, that, and the third. And there's like, there's nothing in it. There's nothing there. Listen. Metroid's an isolated experience, right? What is more isolating than a desert with nothing in it? Think about it. Makes sense. Contextually, it makes sense. Does it make for good gameplay? That's the debate. There is a little bit of the shrine stuff going on. So you do use those in order to get different abilities. You do use those to get different charge shots and all that stuff. And if you don't explore it, you don't get it. You know, the mandatory abilities, they kind of steer you into getting. And that's where I kind of liked their system and I disliked their system. So essentially, Metroid-style gameplay, gated exploration. You start in one place, you look at a cliff, you go, oh yeah, I can't go there, I'll come back later. And then eventually you kind of meander and finagle your way around. In this one, you kind of fight your way to the end. You get an ability a la Zelda. So you see where my comparison's coming from. And then you leave said dungeon with your new ability. And then your buddy will be like, hey, why don't you try going over to the mountain? Why do I make him sound like the crazy taxi guy? Hey, why don't you try going over to the ice mountain? Maybe you can climb. Oh, yeah. And you're like, yeah, shit, he's right. Then you go back there and you get another ability. Now you're like, oh, I know where to use this. And he's like, hey, you should head to the... Oh, you're already at the volcano. And that's where it's kind of fun for me because that backtracking, it's not that you're being steered to do it. It's because they're basically telling you, hey, listen, if you were curious about anything going on in this area, now's a good time to go back. Like, you're not going to waste your time driving over there and all that stuff. It's to save you time. That's really what it's there for. And there are some instances where you'll go there with the new ability, and then there'll be somewhere else that you can't access. And maybe you'll go back with all those abilities, and all of a sudden you have a new boss to fight. And that's where I thought it was really cool. Never in my life did I think, hey, there would literally be 2 dungeon bosses in a dungeon for different aspects of the game with different purposes. It was really fucking cool. I am not going to lie. Now at the end, and this kind of lost some points for me. There is, and I'm sorry if this is going to be a spoiler, but I know people are probably wondering this because Samus does have buddies in this game. There is an escort mission, and if your buddy dies, you get a game over, and it is very annoying when it does happen, especially during the last boss fight where you have all your buddies helping you, and if one of them dies, you get a game over. It doesn't matter who. Now you can resurrect people using the power of telepathy, but it's kind of stupid because it's like you're getting hit at the same time. So it's like, who's going to die first, him or me? But ultimately, it's not that bad. The last dungeon, the reason why I harp on it with having buddies is because it's basically just waves of endless dudes over and over again. And then you get to the final boss, and the final boss for that particular dungeon is the biggest pain in the ass in the world. Because as much as I like Metroid, as much as I enjoy the original Prime game, I fucking hate aiming with a joystick in first person. To me, there is no slower, more unresponsive way to do so. I tried the mouse controls, and I hate to tell you, they suck. Okay? I tried. I had the thing propped up over here on the desk. I'm sitting here. I had the mouse pad out. I tried everything. Just sucks. Give me a keyboard. None of this weird waggle stick, joystick, gyro bullshit. That being said, the Pro Controller and handheld are definitely the best way to do this. And as somebody who enjoys playing the retro FPS games handheld, I felt right at home doing it with this. Other than that manual aiming for certain points, because that auto lock that has been with these games since the beginning, all the way back to Zelda, is still not as intuitive as you would think it is. But ultimately, I thought this game was great. Did it necessarily hit everything I wanted? No. Did it do a lot of stuff I didn't expect? It absolutely did. And that, I think, was the best part about it. Because Metroid games are about exploration, isolation, and ultimately just uncovering a mystery. And the mystery for me was, how the hell is this game going to be? And I no-lifed this game, to be completely honest. I wake up every morning. I would do some of what I would call daily tasks, like collecting this resource just to pump up stats and get different items and all that crap. And I will say there is a little bit of a gating in there towards the end where it's like, hey, we need all this crap, so you better have been driving around the desert doing nothing, in the nothing. But it's not bad, because if you're literally just going from place to place, you get like 60% of what you need anyway. But it would have been better if there were more temples to explore outside of the standard dungeons, because there's only 5 of them. And they're pretty long, to be fair, but there could be more of them. There could be more biomes to explore. Each of the biomes are very diverse. Like, don't think it's all just desert doom and gloom. But there could have been more of it. Like, I feel like they could have just done a 6th one, because ultimately the last one is just a giant elevator. And that's really just a means to get to the final boss fight. Now, your rival in this game that's been in all the marketing, I'll be honest, he talks, which made a bunch of people upset, but basically he just goes, Samus, over and over again, so you're not missing much. But ultimately, if you were on the fence about this, you don't need to be. It is a very, very solid game. The bosses are very diverse. Graphically, it runs like a fucking dream handheld or on the TV. Forget the mouse nonsense. It's not worth your time. There's not as much talking as everybody thinks. McKinsey is not the end of the fucking world. As a matter of fact, he's kind of endearing. Leave him alone. It's his first day on the job. Not literally, but it's his first day on the job. But he's paired up with Samus Aran. Now, game of the month of the year. The one you've all been waiting for, I think. And I will say this year has been incredibly diverse. We had RPGs, we had platformers, we had FPS, we had heavy metal nonsense, we had shield chucking, we had a bunch of kids running around in the metaphysical landscape. We had near-death experiences. We had platformers. We had a bunch of other shit I can't even remember. But ultimately, game of the month of the year is going to motherfucking 3. You believe that? You believe that? Let that sink in a minute. I am saying I had a better time with Mother 3 than I did with Claire Expedition 33. I had a better time with Mother 3 than Kinitsugami. I had a better time with Mother 3 over my adrenaline fueled workout for my heart rate that was Doom the Dark Ages. Now, why is that? Because the hype is real. And it's a shame that this game literally cannot come out over here for various reasons. And if in some weird way it were able to, it would not be the same game. Inherently, down to the biology, it would not be the same game. I would still play it, but I do not think it could ever replicate the experience that this game created for me. It drew out a lot of different emotions. Curiosity, sadness, hopefulness, depression, curiosity, confusion, a lot of confusion. But the adventure itself is just so cool. Graphically, it is so cool. Localization-wise, feels modern. Gameplay feels modern in and of itself. I think the battle system is just as fun. The whole ending sequence between the almost final boss and the final boss and the ending, it really, and this isn't a direct comparison, so I don't think I'm spoiling anything for you guys. If you're familiar with the show, even in Neon Genesis Evangelion, at the end you kind of have different interpretations, right? How did this actually happen? What happened here? And they've made different versions and movies and all this stuff, basically analyzing each and every way it could have gone. Besides the lack of budget for the first ending, right? When I finished this game, I opened up my saved to watch later list, and I went through every single lore video that I had been bookmarking for the past 10 years on Mother 3. And by the end of it, I felt horrible for the main antagonist. I felt horrible for Lucas and his family. I felt horrible for the people of the world. But at the same time, when you have something that is truly dark and you surround it with an essence of light, you kind of mistake negativity for positivity. And what is negative suddenly becomes okay. And that's very much what this game is. It shows you with all this negative stuff, everybody's just cool, chilling. There's one character in the game who is sunbathing. And if you visit him throughout different times of the game, he's still sunbathing. And by the end of the game, he's basically pitch black, super dark. And he mentions at one point, I hear staying out in the sun this long can cause the C word. What? What? There's a pig that you can talk to who just says, I'm not turning into bacon, but he is laying out on the beach, roasting, literally. Basically, a slow demise. But it's okay. He's sunbathing. You see what I mean? It's really fucked up. But it's definitely worth a play. Just not for that, but, amongst other things, it's definitely worth a play. I highly recommend it. Use sorcery. It's one, I would dare say, if you're a fan of JRPGs, it's an absolute must play. And even though I do hope somehow, some way it eventually comes out over here, it has to be in an unaltered state. And truthfully, the way that this game portrays a bunch of different things, I don't even think it is socially responsible to do so, or financially responsible for Nintendo to do so at this point. Anyway, I've been Alex. This has been Game of the Month of the Year for 2025. What have been your top games of the year? Because we got way more coming out in 2026, and I am out of Diet Coke. Take care.